It was a few days after the hand-me-down house got destroyed, and it was time for me to skip town. I wandered down to the jerk store for the Defiance, Ohio show and to say goodbye to some friends. It would be my last night in Baltimore. It was a typical show in Baltimore. I got pretty drunk and hung out with a lot of people that I knew I wouldn't see again for a long time. There's a lot of good people in Baltimore, but I just couldn't put up with the town anymore. It was time for me to get out of here for good. I woke up the next morning at the Boxcars, a popular hangout and sometimes temporary home to some of Baltimore's squatters. A remnant of the Baltimore tunnel explosion of 2002, they had been left on the side of the tracks ever since. I hung out with Jason and Nikki for a while, and then I took off to the Bayview Yard to catch my ride out of town. So I just got on this hotshot train here to Jacksonville out of Baltimore, and I've been waiting here for like an hour. But we were just waiting for that train over there to pass, I guess. And now we are on our way. I've never ridden in a car like this, actually, with these little grate things. But, yeah, we're off to Savannah. Riding south out of Baltimore is pretty interesting. You go under most of the city and there's lots of tunnels to go through. I thought about all the people and the houses I was passing under, most probably having no idea a train was running under them. The boxcars that I'd woken up in earlier this morning passed me on the left as I continued south through the city. I continued past my old house and on through the Mount Royal area, passing the Mount Royal Tavern and Micah, the rich kid art school I knew so many people from. On the bridge ahead, I saw someone that looked like a rail worker with a radio. I decided to duck down and make myself comfortable until I got out of the city. Once we got out of the city, my train really started to fly. I was going around 60 miles an hour and we flew through southeastern Maryland and straight through Washington, D.C. After watching the scenery pass for a while, I settled down into my ride and slept through the night. And so I made my way down the East Coast, sleeping through my intended destination of Savannah, right on through to Jacksonville, Florida. From there I caught a Greyhound bus back up to Savannah, where I met up with Christy, one of my travel partners for the summer, and drove back with her to Atlanta, Georgia, so we could take care of a few things before we left. After which, we hitched rather unsuccessfully for 3 days through Georgia, eventually getting a Greyhound down the rest of the way to Jacksonville. It was in Jacksonville that we met up with Melanie, who had come from her parents' house in Florida. We'd been waiting for her to meet up with us somewhere along our adventures west, and now it seemed that our crew was complete. That same night we met up with my friend Kia, and drank 40s at her house with several of her friends. It was while drinking on Kia's porch that we met Dean, another person looking to get out to New Orleans, which was our next destination. And the next morning Kia got us a ride to the hot dog spot in Baltimore, Florida. We finally scored a westbound train near midnight, and the next morning, Dean and I had gotten temporarily separated from Christy and Melanie when we decided to scout out the train for a better car to ride in while the train was sighted. We were fortunate enough to find a boxcar to jump in before the train took off with our travel partners and taking all our gear with them. It would be another 2 hours before the train stopped again, giving us the opportunity to run back up to the car where Christy and Melanie were waiting. We stopped here for a little over an hour, with the end of our train in view on the bridge behind us and the ocean waves soothing us a mere dozen yards away. Finally, our train continued through the night, and we found ourselves in New Orleans the next day. We woke up in the CSX Gentilly yard, and after making our way out, we said our goodbyes to Dean, who went right off to do relief work, and we started our exploration of New Orleans. We spent a lot of mornings at Flora's coffee shop and did a quick tour of all the other New Orleans destinations, like Jackson Square, Bourbon Street, some of the cemeteries, the river where all the scumfuck kids hang out, and even drove out to see some of the destruction in other nearby cities. Unfortunately, just before we were to leave for Points West, our group had a bit of a falling out, and Melanie got so sick that she had to go to the hospital and eventually back to her parents' house in Florida to recover. It was at this point I found out Dave Betts, an old friend of mine from Baltimore, was still living in New Orleans. Dave let me crash at his place for the next 2 weeks, and along with his roommate Perry, we had a hell of a time drinking in various bars around town. Eventually we met Black Tusk, a band for Savannah that was touring through town. Dave let them crash at his house, and it was that night that we got a little bit out of control, throwing everything we could in the house at a flooded out car left over from Katrina in the street below, including a TV set, and we were drunk enough to seriously consider flipping the car over. Eventually, the neighbors threatened to shoot us from 2 blocks away, and we decided to call it a night. After Black Tusk left to continue her tour, it was time for me to get back to Olympia, Washington. My summer was far from over though, and a lot more fucked up adventures were awaiting me.